Hello, I'm Askar Sharliyev and you're watching news from Kazakhstan. A passenger aircraft crashed 5 kilometers away from the international Almaty airport on Tuesday. 5 crew members and 16 passengers on board died as a result of the tragedy. According to some data, rescuers discovered the bodies of only 12 people. Experts are yet to identify the remains. More details from the scene in the next report.
Yesterday at 1:13 p.m. local time, the plane Challenger CRJ-200 belonging to the private Kazakh airline SCAT crashed between the villages of Kızıltuğ and Guldala, previously known as Red Field. The plane was en route from the city of Kokshetau to Almaty. 21 people died in the crash, including a 2-year-old child. His mother is also among the victims. A triple cordon has been set up around the scene. Reporters are not allowed near the crash site. The air is filled with fume. Ambulances and local administration cars keep arriving. The Emergency Department of Kazakhstan has set up an emergency response team at the scene of the crash. Further information will be communicated later. The plane fell on the premises of the private farm that is located in the swamp area. The police administers the work of reporters near the scene, with many people wearing yellow vests who said they had brought the anti-fog equipment. There were no casualties among the locals. Most of them did not hear the noise. However, there was an eyewitness who happened to be 30 meters from the scene of the crash. As soon as people gathered, they closed off the scene of the crash. Emergency department officials recovered the black box closer to 8 p.m. Apparently, bad weather conditions are named the primary cause of the crash. The bodies of the dead will be transferred to the morgue of the city hospital. Almaty city administration will provide all necessary aid to organize the funeral.
A criminal case was instigated by the main transport prosecutor's office over the incident according to Clause 3, Article 295 of the Criminal Code of Kazakhstan. Officials from the transport prosecutor's office arrived to the scene to conduct necessary investigative and rescue actions, joined by the Ministry of Interior as well as Emergency Ministry Department. Top officials from Almaty and Almaty region have also arrived to the crash site.
The General Prosecutor's Office reported that on January 29th, approximately 1 p.m. local time, SCAT Air Flight 760 en route from Kokshetau crashed due to thick fog while making a second landing attempt on approach to Almaty, approximately 5 kilometers short of the airport, killing all 15 passengers and 5 crew members on board. Prime Minister Serik Akhmetov instructed the government commission to investigate the cause of the accident. According to the government website, the commission is headed by Bakirjan Sagintayev, the first deputy prime minister and the Minister of Regional Development. The commission also includes Minister of Emergencies Vladimir Bashko, Minister of Transport and Communications Askar Zhumagaliyev, as well as representatives of the prosecutor's office and other government agencies. The commission is now working on site. The President of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, expressed his condolences to the families of the victims.
The site number of the aircraft was UP-CJ006. The mentioned aircraft made over 25,000 flight hours and 23,000 successful landings. It went through maintenance on June 26, 2011. The expiration date of the certificate for the flight status was on September 20th, 2013.
CRJ-200 is a basic model of a regional airliner manufactured by Bombardier and based on the Canadair Challenger business jet. The newer model entered production in 1991. 4 years later, it was enhanced with a bigger engine, which significantly improved the aircraft's flight performance. CRJ-200 features a 2-pilot cockpit and a cabin for 50 passengers. The aircraft's wingspan is 21 meters. Its basic cruising speed reaches up to 535 miles per hour, with a maximum range of 1,128 miles. The first flight was commissioned in 2000, and currently Challenger jets are no longer in production. Over their brief history, a total of 13 aircraft were lost in crashes. The Shymkent-based SCAT Air was established in 1997 and currently provides scheduled and charter flight services to domestic and neighboring destinations. The company's fleet numbers several dozen aircrafts.
The official representative office of SCAT Airlines is located in Shymkent. It took some time to agree a meeting with the reps of the company. The reporting crew was waiting in front of the door of the airlines for about an hour. During this time, our reporters witnessed how several passengers who have purchased tickets for the flight Shymkent-Almaty, which was to take off at 4:35 p.m., refused to take the flight. As a result, the executive director of the SCAT company, Alexander Khalev, agreed to comment the situation, but warned that he has very little time to talk with the press.
Самолет был обнаружен недалеко от
The plane wreckage was found 5 kilometers short of Almaty with no survivors left. 5 crew members and 16 passengers on board were all killed. The Ministry of Transport and Communication established a state commission to investigate the incident. The airline set up a headquarters to coordinate the activities. The company expresses its deepest condolences to all families of the victims. It is also a great tragedy for us. Scott Air was established in Kazakhstan 16 years ago and was operating from Shymkent International Airport. Currently, the fleet of the company includes over 50 aircrafts of different ranges and capacities. Scott Air is one of the largest carriers in Kazakhstan, servicing domestic and international flights to the CIS, Europe and Asia.
Officials in Kokshetau, from where the airplane took off to Almaty, have no information on the possible reasons of the crash. The heads of the local airport just said that the airplane took off with a minor delay due to bad weather conditions at the destination point.
The flight departed at 11:20 a.m. Almaty had adverse weather conditions, but we do not know the details of the crash. The investigative commission is currently working here at our airport. It was a Scat Airlines flight. There were 15 adults and 1 minor, including 6 crew members on board. The plane had a 20-minute departure delay due to weather conditions in Almaty.
The emergency with the Challenger 200 is one of the series of tragic crashes of aircrafts. Since the fall of last year, Kazakhstan experienced the crashes of 2 helicopters and 1 military aircraft. In total, these air disasters killed 39 people. The Tuesday's tragedy is the 4th in a row and possibly the most disturbing, as this is the first case of passenger aircraft to crash in Kazakhstan.
On August 22nd last year, not far from Astana Airport, a military helicopter Mi-17 crashed during a training flight with 4 military personnel on board. Following the wreckage, it caught fire. The pilot and his crew died on the spot. Back then, the Chief of Air Defense Forces General Alexander Sorokin stated that the crashed helicopter was new and the crew was qualified. On November 29, 2012, the wreckage of another helicopter, Mi-8, which belonged to Euro-Asia, was found in Almaty region. The helicopter was flying over the Atasu-Alashanko oil pipeline and disappeared on November 24th near the Chinese border. All 8 people on board were found dead. The cause of the crash is still unknown. Only the former military commanders expressed their opinions back then. Should there be an investigation, they must check for the annual rate of flight hours. Sometimes the ministry does not have enough money. Sometimes the chief executive officers do not understand and simply wear out the equipment. Yet it is not right to maintain an aircraft in such a manner. While the relatives of the victims were mourning, the dignitaries kept referring to one another. The Minister of Interior shifted responsibility to the Minister of Emergency Situations, who in turn referred to the police establishment. A few words on the black box. The Ministry of Emergency Situations is investigating it. I have no information. The investigative team is in charge now. The investigative commission is comprised of law enforcement agency representatives, including the prosecutor's office, the investigators, and the experts. Therefore, the Ministry of Emergency Situations is not very involved. Making an outside turn to the right. Are those mountains at this height? This is the last message received from the military aircraft An-72 that belonged to Border Guard National Security Committee, which collapsed on the very same tragic 2012. The incident occurred on December 25th near Shymkent. All 27 people on board, including the head of the Border Guard Service, Turganbek Stambekov, were reported dead. This time, the General Prosecutor's Office did not try to conceal the reasons for the crash, which turned out to be equipment malfunction and pilot error. The failure of radio altimeter occurred 2 minutes and 40 seconds after takeoff. Moreover, the ground proximity warning system was turned off. It took 3 incidents for elected officials to start considering the idea of reforming domestic aviation. They insist on merging the civil aviation with military to avoid more tragedies. The merge of so-called small aircraft of special departments into a single squadron of the Ministry of Defense has been a pressing issue for a while. One of the planes that belonged to Border Service crashed. When I held the Interior Ministry position, we had 4 helicopters crashed, and there was nothing I could do, while the helicopters are still the biggest issue in Kazakhstan. However, accidents involve not only military aircraft. A civil aircraft crashed on Tuesday, claiming the lives of all 21 passengers. Yet the authorities recently discussed the state of civil aviation. The Senator Gani Kasimov at the plenary session of the upper chamber filed a request to the Prime Minister of Kazakhstan demanding to ban the purchase of aircraft manufactured in the CIS countries. He was encouraged by a series of aircraft crashes. In fact, the MP excluded the possibility of civilian aircraft incidents in Kazakhstan for the following reasons. Please follow the example of President Nursultan Nazarbayev, who banned the purchase of passenger planes made in the CIS about 10 years ago due to concerns about the safety of civil flights. Instead, Kazakhstan uses Airbuses and Boeings now. This has solved the problem for the civil aviation indeed. The cause of the Tuesday incident is still unknown. One thing is clear. The tragedy which took place near Almaty will leave a mark in civil aviation history of Kazakhstan as the first passenger plane crashed in 20 years of independence.
The following hotline is set up to provide information on the crash. They're opened in the Scott Airlines and MES representative offices.
Hotline. Scott Airlines, area code 8-725-245-5004. Area code 8-701-727-5490. Akmala Regional Emergencies Department. Area code 8-716-225-5030. Almaty Emergencies Department. Area code 8-727-274-2219.
The General Prosecution Office released a list of those killed in the crash. Among the passengers of the aircraft, flight number DV-760 Kokshetau-Almaty are 21 people, 20 Kazakh citizens and 1 foreigner. According to clarified information, it is a citizen of Kyrgyzstan. Previously, it was reported that Akram Nizamov is from Azerbaijan. This information was later denied. We now provide the list of those killed in the crash.
Passengers: Kalamjan Duysenov, Duysiken Duysinbaev, Askar Kusainov, Nikolai Platkov, Kaysar Malgazdarov, Akram Nizamov, Abiljan Omarov, Marat Orazbaev, Indira Rahimbek, Alexander Serikov, Arsen Shutikov, Askar Yeskindirov, Ivan Zhavarankov, Vladimir Feist, Alexander Rubas, Bakhadjan R. Crew: Captain Vladimir Yevdokimov, Pilot Alexander Sharapov, Trainee Pilot Svetoslav Babayan, Flight Attendant Irina Krivonosova, Flight Attendant Dina Aspandiarova.
To other news. Aftershocks are continuing in Almaty region after the recent earthquake that took place on Monday evening. The epicenter was 225 kilometers away from the city with 6.6 magnitude. Find out the details from the next report.
The residents of Almaty and Almaty region are still in shock over a 4.5 magnitude earthquake struck on the night of January 28th to 29th. The tremor was recorded at around 11 p.m. Astana time. An emergency briefing to calm residents' fears was held at 2 a.m. This earthquake is not a hazard to the population and infrastructure. Unfortunately, the lack of a legal form of punishment for false rumors about earthquakes results in panic among people, say seismologists. However, environmental expert Mils Yeleusizov says that people would panic less if the Institute of Seismology reacted earlier. Unfortunately, we lack experts who can analyze earthquake risks and the effects of seismic activity on the built environment. Our Institute of Seismology has never been able to forecast any earthquakes. The Minister of Emergency Situations expressed his discontent with mobile operators who do not support the idea of distributing free text messages informing people of an earthquake. Some mobile operators demand a fee for distributing text messages about earthquakes. Fortunately, we have reached an agreement on their free sending in Astana and hope to launch this mobile service in other cities including Almaty. Telecommunications expert Askar Shamshekov says that it takes hours to distribute text messages from Ministry of Emergency as they're too heavy. Mobile operators do support the idea of sending free text messages of natural and man-made emergencies. Another issue concerns the code system development. For instance, once a user receives a message with the red code, he will collect his stuff and leave without thinking whether another quake will start. Almaty and neighboring area felt earthquakes also on Tuesday. New 4 to 5 magnitude tremors were recorded in the Almaty region in the afternoon. The city itself felt 2 to 3 magnitude quakes. According to seismologists, minor tremors will be felt for another few days. Good night, thank you for your attention.
The central market in Astana was on fire on Tuesday. Around 11 a.m. the Department of Emergencies received a message on the burning container. Specialists are currently investigating the causes of the fire that burned down 20 trade stores.
It took several hours to extinguish the blaze on a 1,000 square meter territory. The firefighters advanced to the flaming market was severely hindered by snowdrifts. The victim retailers blame the emergency on the market administration's systemic negligence in following the fire prevention procedures. At the moment, 17 pieces of essential equipment and 7 specialty vehicles are engaged at the incident scene, along with 76 firefighting service specialists. All the necessary technical and human resources were allocated immediately upon the emergency report.
Kazakhstanis expressed their condolences to the people of Brazil, where a 3-day mourning was declared due to the last weekend's fire in one of the nightclubs that killed more than 230 people.
On Tuesday, the flag at the Brazilian embassy in Astana was lowered due to the tragedy. All visitors were able to leave their condolences while the ambassador thanked Kazakhstan citizens who shared their grief. On behalf of the Brazilian government and the entire nation of Brazil, I want to express my gratitude to the people of Kazakhstan for their sympathy. I especially want to thank President Nazarbayev for supporting Brazil during these tragic days. We received condolences from many foreign countries and are very grateful for the support of the people of Kazakhstan. Currently, the situation is under control and all necessary measures are being taken to prevent such tragedies in the future.
On Tuesday, a consultative meeting was held in the Almaty city administration where state officials and UN representatives discussed the program of global development after 2015. Sides also talked about the so-called The Future We Want program.
It is only 5 degrees Celsius inside, but the family is still happy since it is not an easy task to warm up the basement where they live in such weather. It is the middle of winter and the 11 tons of coal is already gone, each costing about $80. To avoid getting cold, kids are running around in their boots as granite floors are not making the situation any better. Also, the fridge looks quite empty too. We still have a can of pickled cabbage and a jar of jam. That's all what's left from the stuff I prepared for the winter. We do not have meat. That is it. The lunch of the family with 5 children consists of tea and a piece of bread, but the mother of the family, Akmaral Basirova, cheers everyone up as she plans to fix a good dinner from donated groceries. Volunteers brought some cereal for the children, but half of it is already gone. They also brought some grain, meat and pasta. The mother of this large family is paid $42 a month in government aid. In addition, her husband makes about $260 per month, $200 of which is immediately gone for the rent. The state completely forgot about us. Sometimes I even go to the mayor's office hoping to get some aid for the kids from anyone there, but they tell me that my kids are my problem. An international project was launched in Almaty specifically to help families like the Basirovs. Kazakhstan is among 7 other countries selected by the UN for the implementation of national consultation projects in Eastern Europe and CIS. According to the plan, researchers will be collecting necessary data until 2015, paying extra attention to the most vulnerable social groups in different regions of the country. The overall national income per capita is comparable to that of a well-developed European country, but the same index in the Kazakh region is much lower. I think that the purpose of these consultation projects is to identify priority issues to be included in the agenda of international organizations. The aid should indeed come handy since the population is expected to take part in bringing to life the President's Strategy 2050, says official Aydar Yesenbekov. The next milestone after that is reaching the list of top 30 developed countries. Overall, we have positive trends in the socio-economic development sector. Environmental safety and health protection also show positive progress. The good disposition of the official did not last for long, as reporters were not allowed to attend the meeting of international experts in the mayor's office. While state officials and foreign experts discuss how to help families living below the poverty line, Akmaral prays to survive the winter. She is not keen on addressing the city administration for help, fearing it could strip her parental rights for failing to provide proper conditions for her children.
Journalist Ramazan Yesergepov was able to achieve justice after all, even though partially. The main persons mentioned in his statement, heads of law enforcement, were not punished. The Supreme Court invalidated the confinement of Yesergepov from January 5th to 6, 2012. Yesergepov visited all state institutions to prove he was right.
Ramazan Yesergepov's prison sentence ended on January 5th of 2012. However, the journalist was not released until January 6th, which constituted grounds for litigation of the chief editor of Almaty Info newspaper against the penal enforcement authorities. The Minister of Internal Affairs and the Prosecutor General proved to be inconsistent with their own decrees. When it comes to high-ranking officials, such behavior is unacceptable in the eyes of colleagues and subordinates. Ramazan Yesirgepov identified the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Zhambyl Region Prosecutor, and the Prosecutor General as the responsible parties liable to compensation for moral damages resulting from the law infringement to the amount of $66,000 each. He also demanded a 1 cent redress from the Penal Enforcement Committee head. The case was rejected by 3 court instances, while the Supreme Court granted the journalist's claim in part. The claim fails as the matter of law due to lack of legal grounds for moral damage compensation and finding no guilt in the accused fisheries, since misinterpretation of law cannot be considered a misconduct. The case extends back to 2009 when Ramazan Yesirgepov published an article revealing the National Security Committee's influence on Kazakhstan's presidential policy. On January 6 of 2009, the journalist was detained on charges of divulging state secrets and sentenced to imprisonment. A number of Human Rights Office observers following the case developments found the verdict to be unfair. They agree that Yesirgepov's lawsuit trial against the security officials is rather a matter of principle, setting precedent for future litigations. This situation is absurd. We will keep trying to escalate this complaint to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. Meanwhile, the established precedent will help to protect public interest and serve as the reference point for those trapped in similar situations. Dissatisfied with the litigation outcome, Ramazan Yesirgepov is planning to take the matter to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. He insists that the officials who made him spend an extra day in prison must be arraigned on a criminal charge.
We once again want to turn your attention to the main topic of the day, which is the crash of an aircraft near Almaty. KPLUS Broadcasting Company expresses its heartfelt condolences to the relatives and friends of those who died.
Passengers: Kalamjan Dusenov, Dusiken Dusinbaev, Askar Husainov, Nikolai Platkov, Kaysar Malgazdarov, Akram Nizamov, Abiljan Omarov, Marat Orazbaev, Indira Rahimbek, Alexander Serikov, Arsen Shutikov, Askar Yeskindirov, Ivan Zhavarankov, Vladimir Feist, Alexander Rubas, Bakhajan R. Crew: Captain Vladimir Yevdokimov, Pilot Alexander Sharapov, Trainee Pilot Svetoslav Babayan, Flight Attendant Irina Krivonosova, Flight Attendant Dina Aspandiarova,